really a great collection.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to GenFriends. I'm your host, Cheri Hudson Passey. Oh, don't be scared. That's just Dan. We've got this great panel tonight, and we're just going to have a discussion with Shelley Murphy, one of our panel members, and we're all going to join in. But let me introduce the panel. Of course, we've got Dan Earl, our family history guy.
Hello.
He gets us laughing before the show starts. We've got Melissa Barker,
Always.
our archive lady. Hi, Melissa.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, we've got Mary Kircher Roddy from MKR Genealogy. I can't even talk. How are you?
I'm very good.
I'm glad you're here. And of course, well, she's not really in the Blue Ridge Mountains today, Shelley Murphy, our family tree girl. She's in. You want to tell everybody where you are?
I am in Charleston, South Carolina tonight for the next few days.
For the next few days. And I'm excited because I'm going to travel down there and see if we can't connect. So that's going to be really fun. Well, Shelley was originally going to come talk to us tonight about the opening of the museum. That's why she's in Charleston, is because she goes down there and helps out. But there's been some hiccups in the opening. It was supposed to be January 21st. So will you tell us a little bit about what's going on with that? And that way people will know.
Sure. There is a press release that's out, and there's also information from the Post and Courier that went out that's posted on the various Facebook pages and things. But what they've ran into is sort of building environmental issues. And it has to do with something with moisture and this, that, and other. And because of the artifacts, you know, they're building and putting in the exhibits and stuff now, you know, because we're 30 days out and all that stuff is going in. And City of Charleston Building Code said, I don't think so.
So
you know, we still got these issues. Yeah. What was that, Mary?
Say the name of the museum.
Oh,
International. Thank you. International African American Museum, and it's in Charleston, South Carolina, and it is built on, I believe it's 18 pillars that are like 13 foot high. And
right on that wharf where the slave ships came in.
Gadsden's Wharf, and 16 slave ships that have been researched and so forth came into that wharf or that port. And so the museum, actually, the size of it is a football field.
Yeah.
So I think that's about 150,000 square feet. You know, it's one football field, and somebody can check that to be accurate. But that's close enough to a football field.
Yeah.
But
and we want all that stuff to, you know, we don't want moisture, and we are in the South, and it's right there on the wharf.
So they've got some folks, some additional folks that are coming in, and apparently this is not an uncommon thing that happens with museums in making sure the moisture, the temperature control, and all of these kind of things.
Important.
So yeah, so they, you know, Doc T, which is Dr. Tanya Matthews, is like, you know, if we can't open up right now, everybody's working on it. This is where the energy is going and things. So it's postponed for right now. And hopefully within, you know, a couple months or whatever, it will be there, you know, for the opening and things. I come down because I'm training and working with the volunteers that will be working in the Center for Family History. So we get to have Wednesday at the Charleston County Public Library. We're doing training on, I'm going to say it this way, expectations and questions coming in. So we're doing a lot of role playing, and that should be fun. Yeah. So we take
I can't wait.
I've got a brick wall. You know,
I can't wait for it to open. I cannot wait. I was so disappointed, but I completely understand. It's got to be just right. It just got to be just right. So what we did was we did a little brainstorming, and we were thinking of different records, and a record group that Shelley knows a lot about are Southern Claim Commission records. And I've used them. Melissa's used them a little, but Dan and Mary have not. Is that what you? Yeah. And so this will be great because it's always wonderful to learn about new record groups. Yeah, they can. So Shelley, why don't you tell us what are the Southern Claim Commission records?
Well, they're interesting records, and it's a good collection. And and just think about Southern Claims Commission. What's the first thing you think of when you hear Southern Claims or Southern?
Yeah, they want some money back from the war.
Civil War, absolutely. And I'm actually
that-
pulling up my slides right now. But it is a collection, and I'll tell you briefly about it. Actually, March of 1871 is when Congress had this act that created the Southern Claims. So what it is, people, individuals and businesses and things like that could file a claim to get reimbursement to whatever personal losses they had during the Civil War. So in other words, I gave them horses, I gave them food, I gave them whatever, something.
But I was always loyal to the Union, is what they had to say.
Well, that's part of it. So in order for them to file the claim, they, number one, had to prove their loyalty to the Union, right?
These are Confederate soldiers, most of them.
Yes. But not only did they also had to prove their loss. So they had to have witnesses.
Yes, and this is
the power of this. Yeah. And because witnesses could be neighbors, family, former enslaved, and all kinds of people can prove and say, well, Dan Earl had horses, had cows, had pigs, and yeah, those soldiers came, and you know what? This is who the soldiers were, who the captain was, or whatever it is. So detailed information. So they had to prove their loyalty. One of the things that they had to do was answer questions. And the witnesses and the claimants had to answer, I believe it's 50 to 80 questions.
That's a lot of questions.
And so it's a huge questionnaire. That's what information, which is best for us to, to look as researchers. And so you're looking at people, talk about witnesses. They're really, I see it as community research, because they're telling things that's going on, and this is after the war. So, and again, the witnesses as well as the claimants had to answer those questions. And what was interesting is only certain states were allowed. I'm going to actually look at the slide so I don't miss the state. But on Ancestry.com, there is the United States Southern Claims Commission Master Index. So you're talking about 1871 to 1880 is when people could file these claims. And these are the states that allowed these claims to come in, or that the claims could be filed if you were a resident of these states. And I'm going to say it's the South, but look at West Virginia, the Carolinas, Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas. So there is a map you can find on Ancestry. And also another nice place to go look at stuff is the St. Louis County Library.
Yes.
Because they have an index. Yes.
So question on West Virginia. So is that before they separated from Virginia and joined the Union, or is that after they had joined the Union? And if so, were there other border Union states like Maryland, Delaware, Missouri, places like that remained in the Union, but also had a lot of Confederate activity in them, that if they could they apply to the Southern Claims Commission as well, or was that a different system?
Well, number one, regarding West Virginia, it broke off, I want to say June 20th, 1863. This act started 1871, so it's after the war, so it's totally West Virginia, okay? But Maryland and Delaware and them are not included. Freedmen's Bureau, you got Maryland and Delaware up there, and that would be 1865 to 1872 to 78, because there's other microfilms of things as the Bureau was closing down, and I want to say microfilm 2029 that has records that are after 1871, but it's during that closing process. But as far as the places you question, it's only those states that I've listed that I know of, and I don't know, Cheri, if you saw anything else.
I haven't seen anything from anywhere else. Yeah, I haven't.
And one other thing is the Family Search Wiki has a whole page on the Southern Claims
Yes.
Commission, and that's where you can see the map with the states on it and things like that. So, you
Melissa?
had a question, Melissa?
Yes, can you expound a little bit more on the master index? You were talking about those that filed for the claims, and then, of course, they had to have witnesses, statements, and those kinds of things. Well, as we as genealogists should know, is that most things are not in every name index. And so how do we, if we do not find an ancestor that has filed for a claim, how do we find an ancestor that may have been a witness or may have given some sort of testimony?
St. Louis County Library. Because they're indexed in alphabetical order. Now, the claimants are indexed. And there was a beginning of folks that there is a couple lists that I've seen, but only in certain areas that were witnesses. So somebody, and it was probably a genealogist, somebody like Mary that said, wait a minute, we don't have an index. Wait, we got more names. And so, but I have only seen through what's on their site. But you also can look at the National Archives. You got St. Louis County Public Library, and I want to reference that Michael Haight, those of you that know Michael Haight, several years ago, he blogged on the St. Louis records and about the witnesses. So there is an old, and I'm saying several years ago, actually before he even became certified. So this is how long I'm talking, way before COVID. But he did, and that was kind of my first exposure. You know, we're up at a OGS conference and his blog. I just remember him writing, and so I met one of the librarians out of St. Louis who was a Maggie alum and stuff. And so she talked about this whole collection. And then it was like, oh my gosh, you know, and I have no problem if you want these slides, because they're going to be on YouTube from the group I just presented.
We'll link to that.
So you can link to it once, you know, and have that.
But Melissa, this is Shelley. I mean, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, Shelley.
No, go ahead.
This is what I do, because you aren't going to go to the St. Louis Library, and I'm not going to go. Well, I'd love to, but I'm not. But what I do is I go to the records and I search for the county that I'm looking for, and I pull all the records for that county, and then I start reading through all the records for that county, and they will tell me I just read through it, and then I'm learning about the area during that time period. I'm learning because neighbors witness for neighbors, and you know, sometimes you can find your ancestors as witnesses, even though they're not going to show up in that index. They're going to show up as a witness. So that's how I've done it. I've just gone county by county, because most of the counties only are going to have maybe 3 or 4 people, 5 people. They're not, especially in South Carolina, because they had a hard time pulling that off in South Carolina.
So let me give you a few stats on this. So and
then Mary's got a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I just was curious because I've kind of been poking around, and I got Virginia. My husband has got some West Virginia people, and I'm not finding anything, and I'm not surprised about the Virginians. But
oh no!
So did the witnesses have to be loyal to necessarily?
I've never seen that addressed.
I haven't. It's a good question.
But
it's a great question. I've only just said they're just witnesses, and that's it.
But I mean, I don't think that there was I don't know whether there was a rule, but just in practice, I mean, are they going to segregate themselves? It's like, okay, well, I'm not even associating with you, so I'm certainly not going to witness for you. I mean, or did they set aside those differences?
But in the questions are very detailed, and I'm going to cite some of them. So I think that will help clarify, you know, some of those questions, you know, like if it was a woman, that's the claimant. Where's your husband? Was he loyal to the Union? Was he with the Confederates? Where was he at this time? This, that, and other. What was he doing? What was his job? So they're clarifying if you're loyal or not, and then they have these witnesses come along with it. But some of the things I wanted to share about these witnesses or these claims, there's personal descriptions that are in there. There's accounts of events that are happening around, like when the troops come to get these supplies or whatever it is. There could be letters and diaries where people were writing and saying, so-and-so just showed up, this regiment, and it could be, I'm clarifying the difference, a USCT regiment, or it was a white regiment type thing. And so you're getting names, you got location, you know, and you're getting sometimes even references from a Bible that had that the soldiers came, took this, that, and the other. There was 22,300 cases filed by individuals and families and businesses. And there's even money that, you know, they can cite about the money and the value of the money. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but they never, it still comes down to those questions. And I mean, it is 50 to 80. I'm trying to look at
some of them were approved and some of them were disproved, but it doesn't matter because you can look at both, because it doesn't matter whether they got any money back or not. What you're looking for is all that witness information. And what's really funny is when you read one, and of course the guy swearing and all the neighbors are swearing, no, it was always Union. And then it's disallowed because they found his all of his paperwork from being in the Confederacy. It's like he was a soldier for such and such regiment out of wherever. And you just laugh.
Some of them are so good.
You just laugh because they're so funny, because you know they were just swearing they were always loyal to the Union. They just were poor.
And
they
you know they all weren't. And
oh,
you
of course
know they all weren't.
No, but any way to get some money back after the war, they were trying so hard because everything was taken or their homes were burned and those kind of things. And they saw, I think for a lot of people, they thought, let me give it a try, you know, maybe I somehow, and neighbors would testify for neighbors and they could, well, sure.
$300.
Yeah.
The slave owners could emancipate, free their enslaved person. They had to show proof. This is a different claim, but they had to show proof of ownership of that person they had enslaved. Like where did they get them from? The auction block, family member, or whatever. They had to show what they called like a certificate of title or proof of ownership. And then that slaveholder got $300. And so, yes, you know, and that's
there's a lot, like you say, there's a lot of different ways that people were trying really hard to get some money, but especially after. Go ahead.
Yeah, but there are 3 ways that people could get a claim. Approved, like what you mentioned, disallowed, and barred. Those are the 3 ways the claims came out. But again, like Cheri said, it's the information that's in there. And I'm trying to think, here's some of the questions. What is your name, age, resident, occupation? This is people filing. Where did you reside from the 1st of April, 1861 to June 1st of 1865? Do you own your land? So just think of this as a researcher. Look what I'm getting if they're answering these questions. Where was it situated? How many acres? What's your occupation? Did you change residence or business at any time? And if you got a new residence, what's your new business address? And those are some of the questions. Did you ever contribute anything, money or property, in the aid of the United States or in the aid of the Union cause? But they also ask the same question. Did you ever pass beyond military or naval lines of the United States and enter into the rebel lines? So here comes to your question here, Mary. If so, how often, when, where, and for what purposes, and how long did you stay within the Confederate lines on each occasion? I mean, so they're really going in depth on these questions. And so thinking about, okay, as researchers, we're grabbing, okay, location, we got time, we got people, you know, now we got witnesses. So it's just a lot of information. And again, the women had different questions,
Yeah.
singular. But then now you're saying, okay, this person was married. How long you've been married? Where's your husband? You know, if he's gone fighting, who's he fighting for? Where's he at? This, that, and other. So again, if the husband has died and you're talking to a widow, now they want the whole drilling about the husband dying. What did he do before he died? How did he die? Where was he at when he died? And all of that. So it's, and again, I was just amazed, you know, when I was researching this collection a few years ago, you know, and I thought, oh my gosh, then if they ask, and they term it as colored people,
Yes.
if they ask questions to colored people, were you a slave or were you free at the beginning of the war? Well, that's a ding, 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 you know, for people that are researching that. And again, when did you become free? You know, what did you do when you became free? What were you doing before that? Who was your owner? All of that kind of stuff. So again, it's one of these collections you don't want to miss or skip over. So if you've got Southern roots, check it out, especially people alive and adults during the Civil War time or after, you know.
Right.
So anyway.
And you know, even if you don't find your ancestor in there as a witness or anything else, you're learning so much about their community, because you know some of these names you're going to recognize from the census. You know they live down the street from them, or other records that could be part of their fan club, but you know what was happening with the war in that area at that time. Go ahead, Mary.
So I looked at the index, and I got some, I mean, not names I recognize, but certainly locations.
Yeah.
Locations.
But it's just an index. Where do I find the records?
You can go to Fold 3, National Archives, and also on Ancestry, and there's some records on Family Search. Or go to St. Louis County Public Library. And I'm saying that because it's so, you know, they're not a national archives like the Library of Virginia. That's the state archives. And they've got this collection, and they broke them out in alphabetical order too.
But,
but
that's the actual I mean, I'm looking for the record.
Yeah, you can click and go in. Yes.
Well, I'm on Ancestry, and the U.S. Southern Claims Commissions allowed
They got
claims.
3 different, the barred, the allowed, they've got the 3 things. Yes.
Because there's on this one, they're just showing the states of Alabama, Georgia, Virginia, and West Virginia. But I am also on the St. Louis page, and I can't find anything for like me personally, but as the archivist for my county, which became a county in 1871. So I looked for my county in the index, and I found 2 references. And so those references, what do I do once I find the references? Where do I, like Mary says, where do I go to get the records?
Yeah,
I go to Fold 3. That was my number one choice. Was Fold 3 was the Southern Claims Commission, and I'm on 2 different laptops here. So you know, to show you, I was going to say one of the, well, I got it off of Fold 3. There was a Nancy Short was one of the examples that I used, and I pulled hers from Fold 3. I want to say about 20 pages, you know, just like looking
these
like
are long records. Yeah, these are long.
Yes. Yeah. It's like 20 pages. And her husband had died. She gave up carriages, horses, mules, and stuff, and was able to give the names of the commanders of the regiment that came. So that's even a little more tip. But I went to Fold 3 is where I pulled them.
It also tells you how much their claim it's for. They'll tell you how much they're claiming, you know, what each of these things would have been worth. They never, if it's approved, they never get that much money. But I've never seen any.
Hers was like 1125 and she got 720. That was one of the ones.
Yeah. So that's really fun too, seeing what they think everything was worth, you know.
And I'm going to give you a statement that I shared with them. And this was someone who had filed a claim. And Wallace Johnson, and he said, they took all of our clothing. This is a personal testimony. They took all of our clothing, my father, mother, and sisters, and all of mine, did not leave anything for any of us except we had what we had on our backs. They took everything, pots and pans or something, and kittens, and they cleared out everything. We had nothing. And then there's his mark, you know, signing his testimony. And I thought, oh my gosh, then, you know, you're thinking about what's going on, you know, and here comes these soldiers and they're just taking. I mean, I know it's on behalf of this, then other supplies, food, and this, then other, but they also left people. These aren't just rich people they're rolling up and taking stuff. It's whoever is in their path, basically going along and stuff. So there's details, you know, that are in here that are interesting. And I'm trying to see if I can give you, there's other descriptive pamphlets that you can pull up. And what I tell people, you know, you can just put Google and do a descriptive pamphlet. So as an example, M2062 Southern Claims Commission approved claims for Alabama. So you can just type in Google M2062, and I'm just giving that as an example. West Virginia is M1762, and it's Southern Claims Commission approved, West Virginia. And again, 1871 to 1880.
Well, Shelley, I think it's wonderful that
Georgia.
you're going to give us the link to the YouTube that has the slides on it so people can really.
Yeah, you can pull off what you want from the slides, because I gave them permission to post it on YouTube when I'm going through this.
Right.
But you really, because there's a lot of direction, like to these microfilms, and you know, and rather than doing a handout here, you know, just take them.
Well, I think it's a record group. I think it's a record group too that not a lot of people know anything about. And so if you've got people in the South that you're researching, it's worth just looking to see what you can find. And like I said, you might not find your person, but you might find a lot of information about their location, their friends, the people that lived around them, to see what was going on in the area. And when we do that, we learn a lot about our ancestors. So, and maybe if you get really, really lucky, even if they're not in the index because they didn't file a claim, they maybe were a witness. That would be so much fun if you could find somebody that was a witness.
Would.
I really like to read them. Yeah, fold 3. I'd like to read them for the questions when they're talking to the former slaves. I love when they're
the women and the former slaves.
They're the best. They're the best because they, I mean, you know, who was your master? I mean, people have been looking for that information everywhere and don't realize that these record groups are there. And that's one of the questions that they asked.
And there's not thousands and thousands, like I said, the 22,000, whatever I said earlier, claims that were filed. But again, you're looking for information, not just about the individual, but that community as well. And you mentioned that earlier. So the case files, there are some case files on Ancestry. And but on Ancestry, there's 3 different, which are the allowed, the disbarred, dismissed, and approved. And let me see, and the St. Louis County Library, they also have the slave compensation claims. So if the military, this is also on that library, they have where a regiment would have came in and took somebody's labor.
Yep.
And so they're filing a claim, the owner, for the loss. No different than I'm going to free my slave, get $300, and they can go fight for the union.
That's one of the things that I was looking for, is because I've got a will of an ancestor who obviously did not understand what was going on. And when she wrote her will,
didn't care.
Well, what she said in this will was she still had some of her enslaved people. And she was, I mean, this was right as the war was ending. So she was still in her will, you know, saying who was going to get them and everything. And then she says, and if if we can win this war and I can get my people back. And she listed the names of the enslaved
Oh
that
my God.
the Northern Army had come and stolen from her, as she puts it. So she obviously was living in La La Land. I thought, I wonder if she
Did
claimed.
she file a claim?
I looked and I didn't see one. I was so sad that she didn't file a claim for him, because I thought, oh, that would be really cool.
Because
But
I didn't find a number as far as the slave compensation claims. And in their compiled military service records, and they were with the USCTs,
yes, yeah.
which was interesting. But they covered artillery, cavalry, and infantry. So, and again, there's a guide to the Civil War Slave Compensation Claims Commission. And
Okay. Well,
yeah.
I thought to myself, I couldn't see the nerve of somebody claiming that they were loyal to the Union, but they were claiming for their, their formerly enslaved that were taken from them. So it kind of is a little, you think that took a
Now-
lot of nerve.
Yeah. Now, what's on the slave compensation claims at that library? They have a spreadsheet basically that's there. There's no clicking and grabbing a record. They just have a spreadsheet. So
good.
I would say the National Archives would probably have the
Yeah.
record, the microfilm.
Let me ask you this question then, since we started talking, started off talking about the museum. These types of records that people don't know about, is there going to be some education about those types of records? So that I thought so. So that
Yeah,
people
would you like
understand
to,
and know.
would you like to schedule a webinar and film these records?
I
If you
would.
put it out there, it's gonna happen. And so
Just
yeah,
curious.
we're
Yeah, just
trying
curious. Yeah.
to make sure those kind of things are going to be available for people. But I also want to point out another website that I was more familiar with. And at the last minute, I added it. And there is a, and you guys can Google this, and it's called Valley of the Shadow. And it's by the University of Virginia. Dr. Ed Ayers is the one that put it up. And what he did was he took Franklin County, Pennsylvania, and Augusta County, Virginia. And it's an older site, but the relevance of what's there is fabulous. Well, anyway, he compared these two counties like at the brink of the war, during the war, and after the war. So you look at what's going on, free place, and I must just say Virginia, and he compares. But what's on there that Dr. Ayers, and you guys might be familiar with some of his books that are out there, but Dr. Ed Ayers, he also pointed out the fact that that website had the largest collection of letters and things from USCTs from those two places. So you got letters that the soldiers and things that are being written back to the family and vice versa. So that's also there, but it's really a nice look to compare two different locations and what was going on. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because he had a Southern Claims Commission papers for Augusta County, Virginia. And they listed all of the names of the allowed claims. This is on the website. And then the disallowed, and then the other claims that were there. So they have anyone that's researching that county, Augusta County, Virginia, they can just go down there and say, okay, I'm going to go get it. But again, the website will come under, it's called Valley of the Shadow. I'm going to say it that way, but it's, I'll give you the link because it's like valley.lib.virginia. It's crazy.
Right.
Yes, Mary.
So I'm just, I grew up in the West Coast and I don't know a whole bunch about the East Coast. I kind of know where it is. All right. So
it's not as cold as where you're at right now.
That's not true. Mary knows everything about everyone that lives on the East Coast,
Yes.
including people that are watching this show. She knows.
I agree.
She works for Santa
So
and the
right
FBI.
now, she's gonna come up with something that somebody needs to go do some study. Come on,
Okay.
Mary, bring it.
all right. So I've searched on the index, on Ancestry, and I've searched
Ancestry.
disbarred and approved
Mhm.
on full 3
Yes.
for Virginia and the county, and there's 0.
And some places have more than others that they put out.
And
So that
is
could be
that
the problem too.
because records were lost and so that set of counties was lost, or did nobody file? And what
No,
if nobody
probably
filed?
nobody filed.
And what does that say then about that particular county? Does it say anything?
Can
you
I
draw
say
any
something?
inferences from that?
Virginia, capital of the Confederacy.
Right.
Who's going to
mean,
believe them?
Think about it. I mean, and
Right.
this is where, my roots are in the rest of the New England states and whatever, but I'm just saying, because there was only, what did I say, 22,000, whatever
Okay.
filed, it's definitely not going to be a heck of a lot coming out of Virginia.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. All right.
Yeah.
So do we
and that's
know-
kind of what I was thinking. I mean, my great grandfather's brothers served for the
Mhm.
Confederacy
Mhm.
from that county.
And what counties were they in? Is that any of
Lu-
the counties I researched?
Lunenburg. I don't think you do.
Yeah, I'm
do?
familiar with
Okay,
Lunenburg. And now that I know, because when we hang out on Friday, there's quite a few Lunenburg folks
Uh-huh.
that are hanging out on Friday. So yeah, if something comes up, I'll let you know. But
Okay,
I'm
okay.
sitting here thinking the connections, because I do the Central Virginia counties
Uh-huh.
in around the University of Virginia, but also even to Richmond, but Botetourt and going up, and you're on the other side pretty much. And with Lunenburg, you're by Halifax too, is that correct? Lunenburg, Halifax, no. Mecklenburg is not too far from you.
Mecklenburg,
Yeah,
is
Okay,
is the
yeah,
other one where
yeah.
they maybe were. And I think before,
There's a lot
maybe
of ties from
generations
Central
before that,
Virginia.
they
to
were Isle of Wight,
Mecklenburg.
but
Yes, yeah, over on that hanging
Yeah.
part.
Yeah.
And I've always
Yeah.
wondered how much risk people may have been in trying to file these claims, their own personal risk, because I mean, even today you hear still people say the war of northern aggression, when you're in the South, that denial, right?
Mhm.
And this is
so-
even after the war.
Yeah,
and
so
they
that's
still
what I'm-
had issues.
right.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking, I wonder if anybody was putting themselves at personal risk by trying to go around finding people who would witness for them, or maybe they were saying, hey, let's get this money, we could split it, that kind of thing. Because right, like, and Dan was saying earlier, people lie all the time
Oh, yeah.
in genealogy
All the
records all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
That's
Can I
one question that genealogists should be asking
All
themselves.
the time,
Was
yes.
there any incentive
Mm.
for the person to lie on
Right.
this record?
Yep. And in this case,
$300.
yes, money. Yeah,
I'm
money.
sure
300.
everyone who's watching's ancestors were super honest about everything, but mine lied to the government on a regular basis if they thought they could get away
Mine
with
too.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, can I share my screen? I think
Yeah.
I found one
Oh,
of
good.
the.
Oh, good.
But what I found in his file, this is not my ancestor. This is someone who the name is very well known in my area where I'm the
Oh,
archivist.
good.
And so, but what I found within the file is this, and this is a document before
Right.
1871
Yeah.
saying one mule, 7 years old, worth $160, taken
Sometimes.
by captain, told who took it.
Mhm.
83rd Illinois. Now, the 83rd Illinois, actually, my husband's third great grandfather was with the 83rd Illinois.
Ah,
That's so
But
cool. That's a
so,
great
yeah,
example.
this
That's
is
a
part
great-
of the file, which I found on fold 3.
Yeah.
This is B.P. Summers is his name. And he was really well known in the founding of our county here. And so and this is as far as I got. I got the
now the
first 2 or
war
3
is
pages.
over, so they
Yeah.
are fine. This is in July. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
this is before the Southern Claims Commission, which means he
Right,
wrote
right.
this, not even knowing the Southern Claims Commission was coming about, but would be
Right.
kind of like a receipt, I would think.
Yeah,
It
that's what
is.
it looks like. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, for him to save this and to have this to present,
Yeah.
He can go file.
Yeah. That's and obviously he did. That's really cool.
And what's
But-
interesting is
because you're
to
talking about
look at the
proof, having
money.
to have proof.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, and the dollar
What better
value.
proof? Yeah.
And then also check for part of his package on the witnesses. Are you familiar with any
Yeah,
of
I saw
those
that
names?
over here when I
Okay.
went back let's see.
And you're going to get signatures.
Very, very light.
Yeah.
Or was
yeah.
it?
Some of them are hard to read. Like
they
like
are
in the
hard.
document that we find.
What's petition? What did I see? Because it listed the
going.
witnesses.
Yeah, there is like a summary looking type page too.
Here it is. Here they are.
You know.
Names of residents of witnesses
Yeah.
who were relied upon to prove loyalty.
Yes,
Yeah.
they had to prove that. And
And-
it's like Dan says, liar, liar, pants on fire.
Exactly. I mean, I just
Money.
love it when they
Yeah.
have everybody in town swear that they were loyal. And then they come back and say, well, not so much. Because
Absolutely.
we found there. Did they think they were not going to find the proof that they fought for the Confederacy? They must have thought it all burned in the war.
This is as
It's
far as
a
I got, so I
different
haven't even
receipt.
gone to the next pages. So
Yeah,
It'll be
here's
interesting
another
for if
receipt.
there was a false claim to look at the witnesses to see if
it
they
goes to
also
the next
filed claims,
person.
Oh, that's a good
and
thought.
then see if if they were witnesses for each other, like if they were just
Uh-huh.
setting up their own little scheme to like try to
Yeah. Yeah.
bilk the
And
union
some of
out
the
of some money,
claims
you know.
I did. Yeah, I saw that. Yes.
And
They
it's
were
not like they were,
witnesses on each other.
yeah. And it's not like they were getting good pensions from
No.
southern states, for their service, because the southern states were broke. So, they didn't have a lot of recourse. And I guess they thought, well, let's try, let's see what we can do. But I think for a lot of people, it was probably a big joke, or it could have been that you did this, that tars your name in the, in the community, because if you read newspaper accounts, they were all just still going to reunions and just talking about the war and their service in the war. So then why would you then say I was loyal? So it all boils down to the money.
But you also have to remember how many Confederates took the oath to get out of a prisoner of war camp. Granted,
Yeah.
you want to get out of a
True.
prisoner of war camp.
True.
But
Yeah.
I mean, so you're going to say what you're going to say to get. My husband's third great grandfather on his father's side, the Barker side, was at camp in Illinois, the one that they sent all of them to from Fort
Not-
Donelson.
not-
and
Yeah.
anyway, he took the
Not-
oath. I have a document where he took the oath. But I mean,
Of
he
course.
could
who
have
wouldn't?
easily have said, yeah, no, yeah. And then he gets out
Yeah.
and he's like, I got
Yeah.
out.
Yep.
I'm sure a lot of them did that.
Oh, I'm
Well,
sure.
Yeah,
they
well,
did.
the other side too. I mean, I
Yeah,
had a
exactly.
Civil War pension file, and it goes on and on and on because the guy was a prisoner of war
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
said he'd fight for the South just to get out of the
Just to get
the-
out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
right. One of
I was
my
going to say that. I'm
family-
sorry, Shelley, go ahead.
John F. Goins, and it's Goens. Now, he had a claim he put in, and then it was withdrawn, and then it was dismissed or barred. He couldn't, the only reason it wasn't approved is because he didn't meet the deadline.
Ah,
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
make the
And his
deadline.
whole file is on there. And I thought, well, wait a minute. But what was cool was seeing the witnesses because they were all in the
Yeah.
neighborhood.
Yeah.
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 Another
No,
thing
Shelley,
to look for,
go
another
ahead,
thing to look
Genealogist.
for, because this is just something that I do too. I was looking at these documents for this one guy I was looking at,
Mhm.
and Houston County was, like I said, formed in 1871. So while we were not a county during the Civil War, our land, was
Mhm.
here. There was
Right.
no major battles or anything on this
Mhm.
particular land. But this particular gentleman filed his claims in Houston County where he was living at the time. But
Mhm.
he only became a Houston Countyan because of it being formed in 1871 we were formed from 3 different counties around us. So during the Civil War,
Yeah.
he would have been living in a different county. So I go to look, and I'm looking at these and I'm thinking, okay, how do these get, it's kind of like the pension records and everything else. How do these get filed? So is it
Right.
done at the local level? Does he have to contact someone, get an attorney to contact someone through Washington, D.C.? So as I was looking through these, I recognized the court clerk,
Mhm.
Yes.
the local court
Mhm.
clerk,
And then they went up.
which
And then they
tells me
went up,
which tells me because the local court clerk signed the application.
Yeah. And those local court clerks knew
They're
who was
all family.
they knew if that person
They're
was telling the truth.
family. Yeah.
Well, this
So
has been
it's a
really, yeah.
interesting, it's an interesting record
It's
set,
another
and
tool for
Take
genealogists.
take a
Yeah.
peek at them.
Mhm.
Archives, family
Yes.
search, fold 3, you know, ancestry, and take a peek at them. Even if you don't have anybody, but also look at the microfilm publications,
Mhm.
because there's other links that could be associated to these that you
Mhm.
want to look at as well.
Well, we will put all that in the post, and on the YouTube and the little chat for YouTube, so that people can get in there and just play with these records and see what they can find. Just learn about the whole community.
Let us know.
Yeah, that would be
if they
really fun.
find something.
Let us know. And Shelley, you keep us posted on the museum so that we'll know what's going on, and then we'll do a special episode before it opens, and you can tell us all about everything. So I'm very excited about that.
My
So
little corner.
your little corner. So with that, we will see you next time on GenFriends. Bye, everybody.
Hi.
Bye.